Welcome to this training video. This is the training video for the remote sampler setup. This training video will take you through step by step what you need to do to set up the remote sampler for in-field sampling. The remote sampler is self-contained within a flight case. Inside, all components are labelled. We have the 12-volt charging port, the power on and off button, the battery life indicator, the start button which starts the sequence of sampling, the start LED. This LED gives visual confirmation that the sampling process has started. And then the thermal desorption sampling tube location ports. These sampling ports are labelled sample port 1 and sample port 2. Sample port 1 is the first sampling port and collects the first sample at 60 minutes post start button press. Sampling port 2 collects the sample 5 hours after sampling port 1 sample has been collected. The whole process of sampling takes 6 hours. The sampling port itself is located on the front of the sampling unit. It is very important that you check the sampling port on setup to ensure that it is not obstructed or blocked. The remote sampler uses 10x thermal desorption tubes to collect air samples from its location. Each sample is contained on a separate tube. These are the types of thermal desorption tube we use with the remote sampler. Each tube has a barcode and a numbered label. You must record this number on your sampling sheet and indicate which sampling port it was fitted to. The tubes have sealed ends using these long-term storage caps. When arriving with the tubes, you must ensure that the tubes are sealed and that the tube caps are not loose and cannot be easily removed from the tubes. In the case where tubes and caps can be easily separated, the tube should be discarded and not used for this experiment, as there's a possibility that the tubes will have already been contaminated through passive sampling as they were not sealed. When opening your tubes, it is recommended that you use cotton gloves. This prevents any residual oils or components or contamination from fingers getting onto the ends of the tubes and confounding further analysis. The tube caps can be removed using the set of tube spanners. The tube spanners have 2 different sized ends. You will note that there is a large end and a small end. The large end slides over the tube and grips the large nut. The small end goes on the small nut. You can then turn the small nut counterclockwise while holding the tube and the second tube spanner still. You do not need to remove the nut from the cap. Remove the cap and repeat the process for the second storage cap. You will note that the tube has a label for the sampling flow and is also indicated with a notch. The notch is indicating that the sample should enter with the notch, as shown with the arrow. This is the direction of sampling onto this tube. Take your prepared tube and insert it with the notch in, or the notch. Taking your prepared tube, insert the tube notch side into sample port 1. Pull back the slide, slide in the tube, locate and repeat with sampling port 2. Again, taking a prepared tube, placing the tube to the sampling port, locating the tube in the sampling port, and then using the slide and locate the tube fully into the sampling port positions. Note the number of the tube and the sampling port in which it is located. Also note the serial number of the sampler itself. Your sampler is now ready to start the sampling process. To start the sampling process, check the battery level to ensure that you have sufficient battery power to run for the sampling period. Turn the power button to on and press the start button once. The sampling LED will now flash to indicate that the sampling process has started. The lid should then be closed and the sampler can now be left for 6 hours or overnight until the sampling sequence is finished. Retrieving your samples after the sampling sequence is finished is simple. Take the sampler, open the lid, turn the power button to the off position, grip the slide and slide the slider free of the tubes. remove each sample tube and replace caps so they are finger tight. Using the spanners, now tighten the long-term storage caps to enable storage and transport of the sample tubes for analysis. A quarter turn past finger tight is usually sufficient to seal the sample tubes. Check the sample tube caps to ensure that they are correctly sealed and not able to be easily removed. You have now completed the sampling process. Charging your remote sampler. The remote sampler has a 12-volt charge port. Our systems are supplied with a 12-volt charger system. The 12-volt charger is a USB type A connection. This can then be plugged into a standard 240-volt sample outlet. The charger is supplied 12 volts at 1 amp. The system will charge for to remove the charger, remove the charger.